Okay, so optimizing your chart of accounts. Now the session will be covering a few aspects of the chart of accounts. It will include things that you can do with your existing chart of accounts to make reporting better, as well as what are the type of things you need to consider when you want to restructure your chart of accounts. The items I'll be going through today are as, hopefully you can all see my screen now. If you can't, please send me a message. The agenda for today will be, I'll be first covering account analysis dimensions, which is a way of creating an alternate set of chart of accounts. It's a way of grouping chart of accounts that will help you to report at various levels of summary. We'll be going through a few rules that you can use in terms of naming conventions and header records. This is the way you create the account codes. How do you structure your chart of accounts in your system? What are the types of things you can do with the account codes to add some meaning to it? The third aspect I'll be covering today is analysis hierarchies. Now the analysis hierarchies part is more relevant just for the SunSystems 5 and 6 users. This is unfortunately not available within SunSystems in Sun 4, but I will of course tell you what are the alternate things that you can use in Sun 4. So analysis hierarchies again give you an additional level of reporting that can be made available, and I'll tell you how they can be used in your system. And finally, we'll cover some maintenance aspects to your system. What are the type of things that you need to keep an eye on and maintain on an ongoing basis? Okay. Account analysis dimensions. Now, most of you might be familiar. Some of you might be familiar with these as A codes if you're a Sun 4 user. In Sun 5 and Sun 6, they're called account analysis dimensions. Account analysis dimensions essentially can be used to group your chart of accounts. They're similar to, most of you might be familiar more with transaction analysis dimensions or T codes, which are used to group your transactions that you're posting to the system. Similarly, account analysis dimensions are used to group chart of accounts. Now, what are the reasons you'd want to group your chart of accounts? One of the things that people use account analysis for is to do their management and statutory reporting. For example, if you want to do a profit and loss reporting, you can tag all your revenue accounts with the analysis code revenue, so that when you want to look at a total revenue figure, you don't have to rely on your chart of accounts. You can just select to ask Q&A to produce a summary for all your revenue accounts, and it's going to go through your chart of accounts and look at all account codes where it is tagged with the code revenue. So that will allow you to summarize your chart of account structure to give you a summary totals without having to worry about where the account codes appear in your chart of account structure. One of the other examples that people tend to use it is for doing different types of tax reporting. For example, some companies need to do GAAP reporting as well as Solvency II reporting. Solvency II is another way of summarizing your data for tax purposes. So in order to be able to do that, the way your chart of accounts are grouped or summarized for reporting purpose for GAAP might be different from for Solvency II purpose. So in that scenario, you can use GAAP as one of your account analysis dimensions, which has its own breakdown of GAAP analysis codes, and Solvency II dimension can have its own way of breaking down the chart of account structure. What I'm going to do is quickly go into the SunSystems to show you a live example of some of these things so that they will start making a bit more sense to you. So I'm just going into my Sun 6 image that I have on my system. I'm just using the demonstration business unit called PK1. I'm going into the chart of accounts setup function. Now what the version of Sun I'm using here is Sun 6. However, you should see similar screens in Sun 5. Sun 4 you might see slightly different screen, but you should still be able to see your A code dimensions in there. So if I look at the current chart of account structure in this demo system, sorry, the system is a little bit slow. As you can see, I have a variety of revenue accounts in here. One is for so 11,000 account is stored for product sales. Service sales are posted to the 12,000 account. Maintenance revenue is posted to the 13,000 account. Now, if I look at the actual account details, there's a tab called Account Analysis Dimension. Now in Sun 4 you will see these dimensions directly in your front screen. In Sun 6 and Sun 5 it depends on the way your system is customized, but you should see a panel called Account Analysis Dimensions. Now in Account Analysis Dimensions in this demonstration business unit there is a dimension called Group Reporting Code. Within the group reporting code, if I just click F5 here, you'll be able to see that I've created a whole load of different analysis code that kind of reflect how my P&L report is going to be constructed or my balance sheet report is going to be constructed. In here, I have an analysis code called 10,000, which stands for revenue accounts. Now, the way I've used this 10,000 account code is if you look at my chart of accounts records, this is my maintenance revenue account code, which has been tagged with the 10,000 reporting code. If I scroll to the left a bit, I have a service sales account code, which has also been tagged with the 10,000 revenue analysis code. What this allows me to do is whenever I want in Q&A, I can generate a report to say, show me the total amount of revenue by looking at the 10,000 analysis code. The system will then go and look at my chart of account structure and take the sum total of transactions posted to all my revenue accounts, because all of them have been tagged with the 10,000 analysis code, and group it together and give me a sum total revenue for all my different types of sales. Similarly, you can do the same thing for cost of sales, you can do for balance sheet. So for example, if I look at some of the balance sheet analysis codes in here, just going to click enter, and so in my group reporting code I have a structure here for balance sheet reporting as well. So I have a tag called current assets, which would have most probably been assigned to all my fixed asset, or not fixed asset, sorry, current asset account codes in the system. So now this is one reason for using a chart of account analysis code, is obviously to group for your P&L and management reporting. But another reason to use it can also be for statistical analysis. For example, in this scenario, there is the account analysis dimension called country, which if you like, you can use it against all your supplier account codes. In here, I have various different types of countries created as analysis codes. So if I pick up one of my chart of accounts, from my chart of accounts, I'm going to pick one of my supplier account codes. So this account code here is a creditor account code, which has been given a tag of EUK. If I look at the tag, it will show me that that supplier is for Europe, UK. Similarly, you may have a whole load of suppliers that are from Africa, Ghana. If you have reporting structure set up in such manner, you will be able to do reporting. You can do reportings, for example, to say, show me all the expenses from suppliers in UK. Automatically, what the system will do is it'll go through your chart of account structure, pick all your supplier codes, which have a country code of EU, UK, and total that amount up and give you a sum total for EU, UK suppliers. So that's another reason. So you can use analysis dimensions like regions, in this case account managers. So you can put account managers to say, who are the account managers who are responsible for some of my customers, for example. And then you can do revenue by account manager, because you'll have certain account codes tagged, certain customer account codes tagged by the account manager, and that can give you a revenue by account manager in Q&A. Now, any account analysis dimensions that you create within SunSystems are immediately available to report on from Query and Analysis or from Vision, whichever version of Q&A you use. So that's one of the key reasons you will tend to use account analysis dimensions to do some of your reporting. As I've stated here, some of the examples: to group your account codes, allow easy statutory reporting. Now, one of the things I want to mention in here with statutory reporting is, if you are an existing, if you are not thinking of restructuring your chart of accounts, and your chart of accounts have kind of fallen out of sync over time. So, for example, you started creating your cost of sales. If you have a continuous range of accounts, for example, all your cost of sales accounts start with 11,000 and go on up to 15,000. But say, for example, over time the amount of range that is available to create an account code is not sufficient, and you started creating accounts in other ranges. For example, most of your cost of sales are between 11,000 and 13,000, but you have a account code that got by mistake created starting with the 25001. So when you try to do reporting with that type of chart of accounts structure, it becomes a lot harder, because it's a lot harder to select a non-contiguous range in Q&A. So when you have a situation like that, account analysis dimension allow you to have an alternate chart of account structure. So by using account analysis dimension, it can appear anywhere in your accounting chart of account structure. Because it's tagged correctly as cost of sales, it will automatically pick it up for cost of sales reporting. So it does not appear it does not matter where it appears in your chart of account structure. So for that reason, while chart of account structure, because once you've posted transactions to your chart of accounts, you cannot delete them. You cannot amend the name to start using it for a different purpose. In that situation, there's only two choices. Either you restructure your chart of accounts, which will mean that you'll have to create a new business unit and scrap your old chart of account and start from scratch. And you'll have to start importing balances and transactions into the new business unit, which can be which is a really good idea if your chart of accounts are completely out of sync now. However, not all companies have the time and budget to suit that to cater to that type of requirement. In that situation, account analysis dimension can help you because it's quicker. It can be account codes can be updated at any point of time with a new account analysis dimension. And you can still get the level of reporting that you would get if you had a perfect chart of account structure. So that's one of the advantages of obviously having account analysis dimensions and the way they can help you with some level of statutory reporting. You can also consider like chart of accounts to put some meaning to the analysis codes. For example, within revenue, you have revenue as your 10,000 analysis dimension, but within that you can have a further breakdown to say service revenue is 11,100, and assign if more than one account code belongs to the service revenue, then you can use 11,100 as the analysis code as opposed to using 11,000. So that gives you multiple levels of summary when you try to do your reporting. So that's just a quick overview of what account analysis dimensions can do for you. If you prefer, at the end of the session, depending on time, I can show you some quick examples of Q&A reports that where you can see this account analysis dimension in action. Right. One of the things that people tend to not push much importance on, but yet it can help you a lot with reporting, is the naming convention that you've used in your chart of account structure. Now, some of the things that, in terms of naming convention, I can understand that you cannot change the account code once you've created it, but this is definitely something you want to consider when you try to restructure your chart of accounts. Excuse me. So naming convention. Now, when I'm talking about naming convention, I'm talking about the structure of your chart of accounts. I'm going to just quickly move to the SunSystems screen so I can give you a visual of what I'm about to explain over here. Okay, so naming convention is very important in when you're thinking of chart of account structure. You need to start thinking about what are the different types of accounts you want to have the system, and try to give a distinguishing account range that can be used to identify those accounts. This will help you quite a lot in your reporting, because in Q&A you can do wildcard reporting. And it is also an easy way of distinguishing what an account type is. For example, what I would suggest is for all your P&L accounts, have a separate range from all your balance sheet accounts. So you can put something like 10,000, starting from 10,000 to 4,999 is going to be all my P&L accounts, and you should always fit your P&L, different types of P&L accounts within that range, like you see in this situation here. and then you can select that from starting from 5,000 onwards, it's going to be my balance sheet accounts. So 5 to 6999 or whatever you want, similar to that kind of scenario. So you can distinguish account code ranges. And what I would suggest is try to use alphanumeric codes to when you're deciding on a chart of account structure. For example, all your creditors can start with a C and all your debtors can start with a D, to keep it completely separate from your nominal account code range. Unfortunately, this PK1 business unit is not a very good example for it. As you can see, they have started using debtor account codes with starting with a 6-4. It is fine if your chart of account structure is not very big, but all of a sudden you're starting to use up a numeric range that can be used for a different purpose. And for creditors, it's a meaningful thing to start with a C or a S for creditors or suppliers. And one of the other things that you can do to make it easier for users to search for certain accounts as well, especially creditors and debtor account codes, is you can not only use what the account code starts with, but put some meaning to the rest of the digits as well. For example, in your creditor range, you can say that my creditor starts with a C. The next 3 characters are going to be the starting characters of my supplier name. In which case, if you look at my account code 64001, you can say that this account code can alternately be coded as it's a debtor account code. So I can say it's going to be DEUR01. So what that would mean is D stands for it being a debtor. EUR means that the name starts with EUR. You may have other Europe continental or European guidance systems as being your different suppliers, but immediately the user will know that, right, I know it's a debtor, so I need to start it with a D. So when you're looking for an account code, it's a lot easier, because in this situation you can just go DEUR and click F5 for it to show you all the account codes that start with D, which is all your customer account codes, and that have a name starting with the EUR. Similarly, in this case, that's not the case, but I know that all my debtor accounts start with a 6-4, so automatically it'll make it easier for me to look for my debtor account codes by typing 6-4 and clicking F5 to go, right, I can now only need to look at my debtor accounts. I don't need to worry about my nominal ledger. And this type of scenario will also be very helpful when you're doing if your users do a lot of manual ledger entry. That is also a place where it'll be very useful to have a meaning to the account code. One of the other reasons to have a meaning to the account code is when you're doing reporting, it'll make your life a lot easier in Q&A, because you'll be able to use wildcards. For example, in my case, all my revenue accounts, as you can see over here, start with number 1. So they start with 11 and end with 15999. So if I wanted, I could say, to show my total revenue, I could say show me the total for accounts starting with a 11 star ending with a 119999, which it uses that as a range because it's a wildcard range. The star can be used as a wild character, which means that the system does not care what appears after the number 11. So automatically everything starting with 11 carrying on up to 15999 will get summarized into one total figure for you. So that is another reason why you want to put some meaning to your account codes. Another field that is quite important in here is your lookup code field. Within SunSystems, this applies both to Sun 4 as well as Sun 6. You can only search for an account code either by the code, which this applies ledger entry across the board within SunSystems, and this applies to analysis codes as well. You can either search for an account code by the account code itself. So if I know that my account code is 64001, fine, it makes my life easy. I can just go there and select, yep, I'm looking for European guidance, and select the account code. However, it's not always that simple, especially if you're restructuring your chart of accounts. In the beginning, users may not get used to the new account codes and don't necessarily know what is the number they need to look for. In those scenarios, the first place they would look for is the name of the account. However, as you can see in Sun, there is no way to look by the description. But what you do have is a lookup field. Whatever characters you put in the lookup field can be used as a search criteria. So, for example, if I know that I'm looking for European guidance, but I don't know the account code is 64001, I can just use a lookup code, which is a short form of the name. So I'll click F5 here, click on the clear screen button, and use either the code or the lookup code to search for the item. I'm going to search for it by the lookup code. I can click EUR and click OK, and it'll automatically show me all the account codes that have EUR in the lookup code. So how you use the lookup code is very important. Now, different people use it in different ways. Some people make it the short form of the name. In this case, they've just put in the first 3 characters of the name to be the lookup code, which makes sense because as a supplier account code, you tend to look for it by the name of the supplier, hence the first 3 characters of the name can be quite helpful to look for the item. And you can use a combination of rules. For example, for suppliers and customers, you can make the lookup code to be the short form of the name. Whereas for nominal ledger, maybe you want to try something slightly different. For the nominal ledger, you can say that my lookup code can be what the account type is. So all my revenue accounts are going to get the lookup code of revenue. All my cost of sales accounts are going to get the lookup code of costs. All my depreciation will get DEP, for example. So let's try and see if I can find something with DEP and click OK. And it'll automatically show me all my depreciation related account codes. You may decide that both my cost and accumulated depreciation accounts are going to get DEP, and that's fine. So you can say that in terms of my nominal ledger, for my P&L and balance sheet, I'm going to specify the type of account in the lookup code, because that's generally what users will tend to use, and use the short form of the supplier name and the customer name as a lookup code for the supplier and customer type accounts. So lookup code can be a combination of different types. It's a way you need to be put lookup codes to be something that is user intuitive. What would the data entry users mostly recognize the account as, and use that as a lookup code. So that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're restructuring it. It is going to be very important. Otherwise, it can be very demotivating for users when they're going onto a new system with a new structure, when they're struggling to find the accounts which in the past were very easily accessible. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to find what they're looking for. And that's where the way you code the account in combination with the way you specify the lookup code can make it easier for reporting as well as for making the system a bit more user-friendly. The other thing I would also specify is, again, if you have different sets of users accessing chart of accounts and having the responsibility to create account codes, again, once you have decided on a beautiful chart of account structure that is exactly what you need and stuff, you need to be able to maintain it on an ongoing basis as well, which means that everyone who is responsible for creating an account code should stick to the rules that you've defined. I.e., all my P&L accounts have to fall between the range of 1 and 5. All my balance sheet have to fall between the range of 6 and 9999. How do you make sure that people do stick to those rules? One way of doing it is making it giving the users a bit of hint. For example, as you can see in this structure, you'll see that certain account codes have been put in capital letters, and they've been given the starting of an account range has been given a header record. This is what I call a header record. The 10,000 revenue account is a header account. 20,000 cost account is a header record. So by looking at 20,000 and knowing cost of sales, they know that the account code needs to start with a 2. All my cost of sales account codes start with a 2. If they try to create a 3, they'll know that 30,000 is the start of expenses. So it's a way of giving the users a hint to suggest that this is what this structure is. So when they look it up, they know, all right, all these are my revenue accounts, all these are my cost of sales accounts, and know what to look for and how to create them. So that's one way. It's just more user-friendly to the eyes to know that that's how the structure forms in your system. And these header records can be created as closed account code. So you'd never post transactions to it. They're empty, but they're solely used for as a way of creating a structure in your chart of accounts. Now, another thing that to keep in mind, which is not there in the PowerPoint, but we can help you create business rules in the system that enforce some of these rules. So, for example, if a user is trying to create a creditor account code, and they start the account code by saying 11 SPAN, for example, and click enter and try to select create it to be a debtor account. When they try to create the account code, we can make sure that a rule is in place, a business rule that pops up with an error message to tell them that, hang on, you're trying to create an account code that starts with 11, but you said the account type is a debtor. That means it's incorrect. A debtor account has to start with a 64. So either change the account code or change the account type. So those kind of error messages can be enforced on the system, where we say that if the account code starts with a 64, the account type has to be a debtor. If the account code starts with a 80, the account type has to be a creditor. So that will essentially help you make sure that on an ongoing basis the chart of accounts does not go wild and people start creating account codes in various different places. So that's another way of maintaining the chart of account structure on an ongoing basis. The other thing, the last point on this slide is just more information and another account type that not many people are familiar with unless you use the corporate allocations module. What that is a memo account. So in SunSystems, you essentially have the account types that you are already familiar with, which is your creditor account type, your debtor account type, balance sheet, and profit and loss. In addition to that, there is a fifth account type that can be used, which is called a memo account. Any account can be created as a memo account. So account type, in here there's a memo account. This is available even in Sun 4. It's just designated by the letter M for memo. So any account can be created as a memo account. So for example, if I just go Z test, click enter, test memo account, and I can create, not balance type, sorry, and I can create the account type to be memo account and click enter. It's as simple as that. So it's like creating any other chart of accounts record, but instead of creating it one of the 4 common account types, you'll be assigning it an account type of memo. What memo accounts are used for are basically to maintain statistical data in the system. You can enter journals into memo accounts that are one-sided, so they don't get included in your trial balance, and then you don't have to post balance journals into the system. Some of the most common reasons they use is if you want to maintain your, for example, staff count by department. You can post a journal into the account with, say, number 11. So you can put an amount of 11. What that number 11 means to you in this account code is up to you. It can mean staff count, it can be in the percentage, whatever it means to your system, your business. So Z memo, in my case, for example, holds employee numbers by department, a staff count by department. I can post a journal to Z test, which has a number 11 and which also has an analysis code for department set to IT. So what that'll mean is when I extract, show me the total for IT, it will show you a total amount for posted against the department IT in that account code, and that will give me the total for the number of people in that in the IT department. You can also use it to maintain percentages. For example, one of the common places it's used is in the module called corporate allocation. So if you ever want to consider, if you have a scenario where you apportion costs across departments, you can use, you can maintain percentages to say that 20%. So you can post 20, 30, and 40 into this memo account, where 20% is to IT, 30% is to admin, and 40% is to finance, for example. And the corporate allocation uses these percentages to calculate the amount of costs it needs to allocate to the IT department or to the admin department, and so on. So they allow you to post one-sided entries into the system. So that's a quick, that's just a outline on how you can maintain your chart of account structure with a bit of meaning to it to allow people to find data easily, as well as to help you with reporting, and the use of memo accounts to maintain statistical data. The next element I want to cover is the analysis hierarchies. Now, some people may be familiar with this. Analysis hierarchies, now some people may be familiar with this from Vision/Q&A, because you can create hierarchies in Q&A as well. But what I'm about to show you is analysis hierarchies in Sun 5 and 6. Unfortunately, if you have Sun 4 users with us today, this is not very relevant for you. You can create something similar to this in your version of Q&A as well. But what I'm showing you today is how they are used in Sun 6 and Sun 5. I'm just going to exit out of the chart of account screen. So analysis, just before I exit, so the way the analysis hierarchies are used is if you want to have additional levels of grouping over and above your transaction analysis and account analysis codes. For example, you may have country codes, like how we saw we have an account analysis dimension. So if I just go into my analysis codes function, which most of you might be familiar with. This is the function where you create your account analysis code or your transaction analysis codes. So as we saw earlier, we were using country to group our supplier codes, where we were saying either the supplier is from Africa, Ghana, or they're from Europe, and so on and so forth. If you look under country, we have a variety of analysis codes in here. So we have various European countries here, various African countries in here that we use to group our suppliers. But say, for example, we want to see the total expenses for all my African suppliers, not necessarily broken down by the country they belong to. Now, the analysis code that is assigned to the chart of account is at that level. So you either assign an account code to be Africa, Ghana, Africa, Ivory Coast, Africa, Nigeria, and so on. What analysis hierarchies can be used is to create another level of grouping that groups analysis codes in turn. So analysis codes group chart of accounts or transaction. Then analysis hierarchies in turn group the analysis codes. So what that lets you do is analysis codes will give you a lower level of detail. Analysis hierarchies can give you a higher level of summary if you like. So in here, these are just our analysis codes, nothing new in this part here. Well, what I'm about to show you is how the country dimension can be grouped further using analysis hierarchies. Now what I've done here is I've just added the analysis hierarchy functions that are relevant for this example. So there's two main functions that you need to be aware of in order to be able to use analysis hierarchies and to group analysis codes. And this works exactly the same way whether you're using account analysis or transaction analysis. So the first function I'm going into is analysis hierarchies. This is where you need to define the hierarchy dimension that you're going to use to group the analysis dimension. So essentially, in here you're creating a relationship. So what you do is you first select the dimension that you want to group the hierarchy by, and give me a second, and you define what your hierarchy code is going to be. So in here, instead of creating, I'm going to create a new one called continent, for example, and click enter. It'll ask me does not exist, do you wish to create it? So my country dimension has already been created. I'm not creating my country dimension. That already has been created and already has analysis codes in there. What I'm trying to create is the continent dimension, and saying continent is going to be used to group the country analysis codes. So I'm just going to create the grouping description and click enter. Now once I have, I'm just going to move my meeting screen a bit to the right. Okay. Now once I have created my dimension, I need to create what are going to be my continent code. So before I can group it, I need to define under continent. I want to have Europe, I want to have Africa, I want to have Asia, and so on. So let me go and create my hierarchy code. So these are the codes that are similar to what analysis codes are to analysis dimensions. That's what hierarchy codes are to hierarchy dimensions. So I'm going to click on hierarchy codes. It'll say no data found, and that's fine because I don't have any data in there. And in here, I'm going to create my first continent. Click Enter, and just give it a description. If it needs a longer description, then you can give it a longer description. I'm going to clear screen and create another code. For now, I'm just creating the two codes in them. So these are the two continent codes I've created in under the continent hierarchy dimension. Once I've created the continent codes, I need to then define which country codes belong to Africa and which country codes belong to Europe. So I'm going to exit out of this screen and exit out of my hierarchy dimension screen as well, and then go into a second function called hierarchy assign codes. Click on analysis hierarchy assign codes. Select the dimension that we were trying to group. Click OK. Select the hierarchy dimension that I'm going to use. I'm going to use continent. Hierarchy code that I'm going to use, I'm going to first start with Africa. And in my analysis codes, I'm going to select all my Africa analysis codes in the system. Let me exit out of here. I think I clicked Enter in the wrong part. So I click OK. It says does not exist. Do you wish to create it? Yes, I do. So that's created, that's grouped FGH under the Africa dimension. I'm going to clear screen or insert and create another one in here. Just going to do 2 for Africa and 3 for Europe, so that just to speed up what I'm showing you. I'll just create one more for Europe. And I'm going to select. So in this manner, obviously I've only selected 2, but essentially you need to group every African analysis code under the Africa continent, so that when you see expenses by Africa, all account codes that have been assigned with these analysis codes will be grouped under one category. Similarly, all the countries under Europe need to be classified under the Europe continent. So this way, as you can see, I have created, now I have a whole load of different dimensions in here. Those are the 3 that I created. So I've created 2 under Africa and 1 under Europe. So when I look under Africa, only these 2 analysis codes will be grouped together. Of course, this, as you can see, you don't have to group every analysis code under there. If only 2 are relevant, then you can do that as well. As you can see, there's an existing example under region, which has various different regions grouping analysis codes under them. So what this allows you to do is, again, immediately now, within Q&A, you will have continent as one of the analysis hierarchies that is available, and you can report on the various continent codes. Unfortunately, hierarchy codes cannot then be grouped under another hierarchy. You can only have one more level up from your analysis codes to allow one more level of summary. So this way you can basically create another level of summary over and above what account analysis codes allow you to do. So that's how you can use analysis codes, and you'll be able to view them immediately in Q&A. Now for Sun4 users, you can do something quite similar to this directly in Vision. Now, why would you use Sun over Q&A to create analysis hierarchies? For one, analysis hierarchies created in Q&A, you can only use one hierarchy code at a time within the Q&A reporting, whereas when you create it within Sun itself, you can use multiple categories of them for in your reporting. And two, all of it is maintained in one place, and you can create it make it an internal process where every time you create an analysis code, you immediately go and assign the analysis code to hierarchy. So it's all maintained within Sun rather than users having to remember to go and add it in the Q&A function. In Q&A module. So from that perspective, of course, it is better to be creating the codes within Sun 4 where all your reference data exists in one place. So that's one way of creating analysis hierarchies that can allow you to further group analysis codes to a higher level. And it can be applied both to transaction analysis as well as account analysis dimensions. Now, the last thing I want to cover is some of the elements that you need to consider for ongoing maintenance. Again, you need to chart of account structure. Once you create, it does not mean that your job is done. You need to ensure that things are maintained on an ongoing basis where, for example, all your account codes that have become redundant over time, you should make it a point to, on a periodic basis or as they happen, to close the account codes or to suspend the account codes. This not only helps you keep the this not only helps you to stop people from posting data into redundant account codes, but it can also help speed up reporting. When you have I don't know, 500 account codes in your system, of which 100 are redundant, that is that many less account codes for your reports to go through to search for data when they're closed. Because when you create reports, you can just say check only open account codes. So obviously that can speed up the reporting as well. But on the other hand, one of the biggest reasons is obviously you don't want people to be continuing to post to account codes that are no longer valid. So that's the other reason you want to close or suspend account codes. As I mentioned earlier, you can use business rules to enforce some of the internal processes that you're trying to put in place to make sure people follow whatever you've created as a structure on an ongoing basis. One of the other things that I'm mentioning over here, the bust and transfer the desk scenario. These are tools that are available to you. So for example, if you are considering a restructure of your chart of accounts, one of the things that a lot of people do, and this is more relevant for people who have multiple business units, you can create what you call a master business unit, which never has any transactions in it, but it is used as the place where everything gets created so that different business units are not creating their own set of chart of account structure. So for consistency purpose, you can make it a rule that any new sets of data have to be created in the master business unit and then followed through into the other business units. And to help you with that, you have tools like bust and transfer desk, which essentially what they let you do is they let you transfer data from one business unit to another. So you can transfer chart of accounts to say that any chart of accounts created in my master business unit, transfer them over as is to my, I don't know, my live business unit. You can transfer analysis codes, analysis structures, analysis dimensions, everything created in one dimension can be created, one business unit can be created in other business units as well. Bust is very similar to that module that I'm talking about here. So again, Paul may comment on this later. It may be something that you need to be licensed for, but definitely very worthwhile to use. It can also be used to import external data into the system. Couple of things, the last two things I want to cover are link account codes and data auditing. I'm just going to go into Sun for this. Within the Sun chart of account structure, what you have is a field called link account code as you can see over here. What link account codes essentially let you do is they let you link an account code to a secondary account. For example, if this supplier that I have on screen, Birmingham Communications, is where all my cell phones and headsets are supplied by Birmingham Communications Limited, then I know that this particular when I post an invoice for Birmingham Communication, it always goes to my my account code I don't know, 5,000, for example. What you can do is you can use this for journal entry by predefining what the revenue or expense account code is against a specific account code. So if I click F5 over here, it'll show me all my existing chart of account structure. In here, I can select whatever is meant to be my secondary account code. Just for demonstration purposes, I can select 21,000 and click OK. So what this lets you do is this can then be used in your journal presets to say that for a purchase invoice, the expense side for this particular account code always goes to 21,000. So the user never needs to enter the journal. All they'll need to do is when they enter the first line of the invoice posting to 80020 account, the journal preset will automatically create a second line, the expense line, and preset the account code to be 21,000. So that's another way of controlling where users post transactions to which account codes are used within your system. So that unfortunately you don't have a choice of providing more than one account code. There's only facility to provide one additional account code to the primary account. Lastly, there is facility to audit data within SunSystem. Any table in SunSystems can be audited. So this is a way of you keeping track of who is making changes in your system. For one level of auditing in Sun 5 and Sun 6 is available on the screens itself. For example, if I go into my screen here, there is a tab called Audit Data, which always tracks who was the last person who was in here. For example, in my case, it's put today's date and time and my login ID to say that I have come into this account code to make certain changes. So that's one way of keeping track of who's been in here. The second thing is also you can, now I'm not going to be able to generate the report right now, but what you can do is you can set up something called Data Audit Plan within the system, where basically you can say that I want to track everything that is being inserted, everything that's being updated and deleted from the system. And I also want to track, you can specify the number of days you want to retain this data for. You can write protect it if you want. For now, I'm just going to go no protection. And by default, it creates the audit file in Excel format. So I'm just going to quickly create the audit plan. Now once you've created the plan, you need to say what are the tables that you're auditing. Essentially in Sun, every single table in Sun can be audited. So you need to be quite picky on what exactly do you want to audit, because that can create too much data in your system. For example, if I want to audit my chart of accounts structure, a chart of accounts table, so I want to always see which account code is being is being created, what are the changes that are being made to my chart of account structure, I can come into this data audit configuration and select that I want to activate audit on my chart of accounts table. It takes a little bit of time to update because of the number of tables that it can audit, and you can specify this by business unit. So I can click on amend over here and just go activate audit on this account, and my audit plan that I want to select is the audit plan that I created earlier, which basically said that I wanted to audit, I wanted to track all 3 actions, and click OK. So what that lets me do is every time I extract this report, it will let me track everything from this point onwards, any change I make to the chart of account structure from this point onwards. And when you're extracting the report, you can define to say that I only want to see additions, deletions, or updates. So just quickly, I'll just show you the screen. Again, I'm not going to be able to extract it today, but I can show you what the screen looks like. So in my data audit extract screen, I can specify where I want the report. Obviously, this is dependent on what folders you have rights to extract. You can say, show me everything between these dates. You can say that if you're auditing multiple tables in the system, you can define what do you want to see. Do you want to see tracking on accounts? Do you want to see on bank details, addresses? Where is it that you want to see? And then just click OK. And once you click OK and extract, it basically extracts whatever changes have been made since the time that you have activated the audit. So this is just another way of you keeping track of what is happening in your system. Also, it is something that most probably your auditors ask you for as well. How is it that you know that what changes are being made, and what are your security measures in the system to track what people are doing in your system. So data auditing is available. You can definitely ask us, and we can either send you some documentation on it or come and assist you with setting a plan up. So that's just another thing that is available in terms of making optimal use of your system. And that's it. So those are the various ways in which you can audit your data. So in which you can optimize your system. So just to quickly summarize what we went through today. So you can use account analysis dimensions to create an alternate structure to your chart of accounts. This can be done either to a brand new structure or to your existing structure. You can, when you're restructuring your accounts, you may want to consider introducing some meaning to your accounts to make sure that the account codes are easy to use and fall in a meaningful range that will help you with your reporting. You can use analysis hierarchies to help you with additional levels of summary for your reporting purpose. Analysis hierarchies are used to group your account analysis dimensions to a higher level, or your transaction analysis dimensions to a higher level. For an ongoing maintenance, you may want to consider closing and keep maintaining your accounts on an ongoing basis by opening and closing accounts as needed, and also making sure that the changes being made in the system are audited correctly, and you're keeping track of what is happening within your system.